Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at Riderflex. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the Riderflex show for updates on new episodes. And by the way, if you haven't already, check out the book we recently launched, The Riderflex Guide, Inspiring and Hiring, available for purchase on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Hello, Reggie. Can you hear me all right?
I can, Stevie. Can you hear me good?
Yeah. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you for getting this scheduled and being on the call. I appreciate it.
Steve, I'm really glad to do it. Shelley Brunswick referred me. She did a podcast with you several months ago, and she's a friend of mine here in Colorado Springs, and a great business leader here in town, and business leader really worldwide in the space community. So
that is great of her to introduce us. Hang on just a second. That is awesome. I was trying to remember how we got connected. I couldn't remember, but that's awesome.
Yeah, Shelley and I actually was at so you're up in Denver, right?
I'm south of Fort Collins. I'm in between Fort Collins and Denver.
Okay. We actually were at an event in the springtime. So we're connected through the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Corporation here in town. And even though I don't work there anymore, still very involved with that community. And we were at an event welcoming back General and Mrs. Heighton. General Heighton, who spent a lot of time here, recently retired, actually retired a year ago out of the Air Force, was the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the #2 general in all of the U.S. Department of Defense. And I actually used to live across the street from him in my last job in the Air Force. And then he retired me as well. Anyway, so my wife and I know the General and Laura through that, and wow. We were at our Military Affairs Council here. We've never had out of Colorado Springs. We have lots of retired 4-stars here. We don't have a vice chairman here yet, and so that was a special event. And anyway, that was the event where she was telling me about this great podcast she's just done, and she said, "You'd be great for that, Reg." And I said, "Okay, sign me up. Let's do it."
That's great. Well, that's awesome. An honor to have you on. Impressive career. I mean, really outstanding background. You can't ask for much more than some of the things that you've accomplished. So congrats on everything. Really, really super impressive. And thank you for your service and all the dedication that you've given to the country over the years.
Yeah, Steve, it really, it's great to be in the military, be a veteran right now, and not have to go through what the previous generation did coming out of Vietnam, because I get those awesome comments all the time. I never received any negativity that people did in the 70s and in the 60s, and I just said, I loved every minute of it. And thank you for recognizing that.
Yeah. I've never heard anybody say it like that. I guess it's true, right? It's a blessing not to have gone through that, I guess, like some guys had to, right? Some of the things that people had to go through, World War II, World War I, Vietnam, I mean, you name it. Yeah, I guess that's true. So you haven't had in your career, you weren't in a shootout, a dog hole, or what do they call it? A foxhole. Sorry. You weren't in a foxhole in a shootout at any point during the impressive career you had?
No, not so. As an Air Force communications officer, never got anything into anything like that. I certainly was in combat environments. I spent a year as a squadron commander at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. I was there from the summer of 11 to summer of 12. And, I had an M9 on my hip the whole time that I was there. And we took more indirect fire, more rocket attacks on the base than any time that I was there. And certainly there is some danger associated with that.
Yeah.
But was not in what people typically think about, knocking down doors and clearing towns and clearing buildings and things like that. And I have such tremendous, relatives that have done stuff of that, like that, and some good friends, and relatives and good friends who have done stuff that they can't even tell me about. And I have so much respect for them. And then I was also in Cobart Towers. My first deployment, really, it's kind of surprising for the time period that I was deployed. I really only had 2 deployments. The first one was in 1996, and I got to Cobart Towers 12 days before the bombing of the terrorist bombing of Cobart Towers, and just was really very lucky in terms of my experience there.
A lot of people today, and by the way, we're already rolling, so we'll just keep rolling here on the recording. So we'll just keep going. I feel like a lot of people today just don't have any idea some of the sacrifices that people made in some of these wars. I feel like we've lost that. It's been so long since the last war that I feel like a lot of, and I'm not picking on millennials necessarily, but I just feel like a lot of people have kind of lost the sense of reality of what people went through. My wife and I watched a movie on Netflix. I think it's called All Is Quiet on the Western Front. I don't know if I got the title exactly right, but it was a World War I film. And you just watch stuff like that and you're just like, wow. I mean, what's super easy to kind of forget some of the things these guys went through. So
it is, absolutely. And what the military deployments and warfare now, of course, very, very different than it was 100 years ago with all fighting on the Western Front based on World War I, of course. But there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences as well. And one of the differences is that in World War I and even World War II, the vast majority of warfighters, we'll call them, whether they're airmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines, the vast majority of warfighters took a boat home, right? And so they had several weeks of processing internally, of talking with other people who had all been through the same experience before they got home and were back in a normal society. And now it just happens to us like that, so quick. And not that erases all of the damage that's done through that experience, but certainly having the time to process it is something that helps, rather than just, hey, let's put them on a plane and go home. For example, for me, not that I've had anything remotely close to PTSD. My experiences that I had just don't go there, and I don't want to compare my experiences to those people who were dodging IEDs and knocking down doors and those sorts of things. Those are the heroes in my book. But when I came home, it might have even been a year after the Cobart Towers bombing. And I was at a Sky Sox minor league baseball game here in Colorado Springs, and unexpectedly there was a firework, and it was the one that kicks over with big boom.
Oh yeah. And
I didn't know it was coming, and it made me jump just a little bit, and I kind of went, "Ooh, Cobart Towers," just because that was the sound that I remember. And so for people who've been through much, much worse than I have, I can only imagine how exponentially worse it is for them.
Were you a military kid? Did your dad serve? Did your family serve? Give me some background on your family history, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I'm the first one in the military in my family. I did have a couple of grandparents, biological grandfather who served in the Army Air Force in World War II. Did not see any combat. He stayed stateside. And then I had a step grandfather who was in the Iowa Army National Guard.
Okay.
But really, my my interest in the military, other than just being raised in a relatively conservative family that just respected that. I did have an uncle as well. I had an uncle who was a Navy corpsman.
Okay.
But you know, just so I wasn't surrounded by that growing up, like certainly my kids have been. But really, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was in middle school and
I
high
got
school.
you.
I wanted to be an
All right.
astronaut, and so
Okay.
you know, teenage mind, you'd think, how do you be an astronaut? Go be a fighter pilot, and so go to the Air Force, be a fighter pilot, and
All right.
so that was the path that I started on. And let me just say that God threw up a number of barriers on me becoming a fighter pilot. So ultimately, I went to a flight screening program and had some medical problems.
Okay.
And so, you know, it was never part of my plan to be an Air Force communications officer. But that's just where I was led and how things played out for me. And ultimately worked out pretty good for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it worked out just fine. I think your career turned out just fine, even though you didn't walk on the moon, or, you know, I think you did okay. Are you, your folks, are they, were they from Iowa? Are they still, have they passed? Are they still here? Give me some background there.
Yeah. Parents are still here. Parents, step-parents, former step-parents, all still here.
Okay.
And I have, you know, pretty good relationships with all of them. Parents divorced when I was 5. Dad was from the Chicago area.
Okay.
Mom was from small town Iowa, and they divorced right after my 5th birthday. Dad stayed in Chicago, and he and his family have been entrepreneurs their whole lives. They were in the meat packing business, and so you know, when I grew up around swinging beef, you know, like in Rocky when he's, you know, working out against the forequarters and hindquarters, that, you know, and I wasn't punching the beef, but I was sure lugging it around and tossing it in vans and trucks to be delivered to stores and butcher shops and those things.
Okay.
And then you know, mom and then future stepdad moved around a lot. A couple of years in Iowa, spent about 5 or 6 years in Nebraska.
Okay.
And so I did half of kindergarten through 6th grade in various schools in small town Nebraska, including Norfolk, Nebraska, Johnny Carson's hometown. That's what they're famous for. And then after 6th grade, moved to South Florida. So went from, you know,
Okay.
I went from I went from a country school in Nebraska. I was for 2nd grade through 6th grade in a country school in Nebraska with roughly 20 kids in my class, down to if you get this, Jefferson Davis Middle School.
Wow. Okay. Total culture shock.
Yeah. Jefferson Davis Middle School doesn't exist anymore. They finally changed the name about 15 years ago. Thank goodness. Yeah, and there were what, 600 kids in my class all of a sudden.
Was your stepdad or your mom being moved around for jobs, or what was the reason for the moves? So, because somebody's career.
Yeah, you know, when you want to know what the interesting thing is, mom and stepdad, they honeymooned actually in Florida, and then just, you know what, hey, wouldn't it be great to move down there? And so
Okay.
you know, stepdad was a supervisor in an electronics manufacturing plant, and got a job with Nortel down in the West Palm Beach area. And then we moved down there, and then that's where I was for 7th grade through graduating high school.
Okay. So you graduated high school in Florida.
I did, yes.
But you went to school in Iowa to get your bachelor's. Interesting. Did you want to go back there? What was the reason for that?
Yeah, you want to know what? I was one of those teenagers who just said, "Oh my God, I got to get out of this state," right? You know, and now I look at it. At the time, I thought I wanted to be an engineer.
Okay.
You know, thank goodness that I didn't get ended up getting an Air Force ROTC scholarship in computer science.
Okay.
And which, thank goodness it wasn't engineering, because that would not have been right for me. I mean, computer science was a bit of a stretch for me, but yeah, I was like, I got to get out of the state of Florida. And now I look and I go, wow, there's some really great schools in Florida.
Yes.
I was hoping on the Air Force Academy. I got a nomination. I didn't get accepted to the Air Force Academy. But like I said, I got that Air Force ROTC scholarship
Okay.
with the family roots from Iowa. Both mom and stepdad from small town Iowa. A lot of relatives, a lot of loved ones still there.
I see.
I went to Iowa State and did Air Force ROTC.
I see. Okay. Very good. Did you have siblings, by the way?
Yeah, that gets to be a long story with the divorces and the remarriages, and so yeah. So I got I've got one sister that shares the same parents as me. I'm the oldest; she's 3 years younger.
Okay.
And then there's another sister that I spent most of my time growing up with, and then I've got some siblings from dad and former stepmom, and I'm good friends and close with all of them too. And so just really lucky to be surrounded by a lot of love.
I'm similar, very similar situation. I got halves, steps. I mean, yeah, there's so many people. There's so many of us like that, right? I mean,
yeah.
The traditional Leave It to Beaver family. Some of the people listening to this podcast don't even know what that is, but I mean, just to stay married and the 2 kids. I mean, it's just. I mean, hey, for those that are managed to do that, great, kudos to you. But a lot of us grew up just like you did.
Yeah.
Okay. We obviously then you were a good kid in high school. You made good grades. You must not have gotten any trouble. Were you a straight A student? Because it's your resume appears to be like, okay, I'm focused. I'm straight A student. I never get in trouble. Is that the way it was?
I stayed pretty focused on the goal. I would, not that I messed around a little bit in high school, but I was smart about it.
Okay.
and knew not how to, I never did anything too serious, nothing too outrageous.
Okay.
But knew how to take risks without being stupid about it. But I, really stayed out of a lot of trouble, was the student council president and all that, so.
Okay, so leadership way early on then, and obviously throughout your career in the Air Force and your professional career, constantly being pushed to leadership roles. Did that come from you feel like you got that from your dad, your stepdad, your mom, stepmom? Like who did you emulate with the leadership piece, you think?
That is in the DNA from my dad.
Okay. Your blood father, your real father.
Yes. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So if there was a bus of 30 people and it crashed in the mountains, your dad is the one kind of circling the wagons going, okay, guys, we're going this way.
Yes. Well, he's certainly going to try. Yeah. Yeah. Having the interpersonal skills to get it done might be a different story, but
that's so good. So your mom and stepmom polished your personal skills to be able to lead without pissing everybody off all the time.
That's it. Yes. That was something I said at my Air Force retirement ceremony when you've got all of the parents and the step parents sitting there, and I was able to say, you know what, I was lucky enough to take from my dad that tremendous drive, and from my mom, I was able to take that caring and loving, because as a leader, it's so important to genuinely care for the people that you're leading and show them that you genuinely care. And I got that from my mom. From my stepdad, I was able to get kind of the strategy of gamesmanship, and have fun with what you're doing, and treat it like a game, and go for it like that. And so I was just lucky to be surrounded with people like that gave me the right lessons.
That's awesome. And I'm sure you had plenty of mentors and leaders in the military throughout your years there too, that you really looked up to. Anybody you want to call out specifically? The list is probably long, but and then when I ask people to do this, they're like, well, if I don't mention this person, if I don't mention that person, they're going to be mad. Anybody you want to mention that really just helped you along that you want to highlight?
You're right that I did have so many, but let me call out my first squadron commander here at Peterson Air Force Base. When I was talking about being at the terrorist bombing in Saudi Arabia. While I was there, I picked up an assignment here, at Peterson Air Force Base. My first squadron commander here, Lieutenant Colonel Lynn Vermillion. And she really made a strong impact on me because I got to see her up close. And she was squadron commander. I was a flight commander. I was working directly for her, and watching the way that she would lead, and watching how, she wasn't liked by everybody in the squadron. And that's okay for leaders. If you're doing things right, you're not going to be liked by everybody.
No, there's no way. Yeah, there's a nice pause segment for the listeners, especially the young aspiring leaders listening to this show. I mean, yeah, I'm 55 and I've been leading people my whole life. I'm just telling you right now, if you're going to lead effectively and make sure things are being executed, there is no way in hell that everybody's going to love you. It's just not possible.
Right. That's right. And it doesn't mean that doesn't give you a license to go out and be a jerk. Right.
Right.
You should still be polite and professional and respectful, because everybody on the team is bringing something to the table, and you need 100% out of everybody on the team. But you're going to make decisions that some people don't like.
I was just
listening for the organization.
I was just listening to Mike Sorelli, was a Navy SEAL. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast last week or so, and Mike has been on the Riderflex podcast. And Mike was telling Joe, he's like, "Look, here's the deal." He goes, "I love all my Navy SEAL brothers, but do I like all of them and want to have beer like after the assignment with everybody? Not necessarily."
There's a number of times, that you'd have conversations with people, and you're like, hey, I get it. I'm not asking you to go home with them at night. I'm just saying, get along with them at work, right?
So true. All right, I want to we don't have, there's no way we can touch every piece of your career, but I want to talk about, communications, defense, the aerospace industry. I want to talk just in general, before we get into Caliola. I have some questions for you, if you don't mind. First one is, do I need to be scared that I'm being hacked all the time? Do I need to be changing my passwords every week? How worried do I need to be that people are okay? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. All right. So talk to, I guess the question is, from 30,000 feet, how would you advise people with their own personal security and communication at home right now? And I know we could do a whole podcast on that, but maybe just a little like, hey guys, if you're listening to this podcast, here's what I recommend based on what I've seen.
It's really about managing risk, and how concerned are people about managing the risk of their personal finances, the risk of their identity. And then for those who are leading companies, what's the risk you're willing to accept into your company? And for defense companies, our adversaries are actively trying to gain access to
all the time. All the time.
Are they trying to gain access to recruiting firms? The Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians probably aren't. But are your corporate competitors? Are your competitors trying to do that? I don't know. I don't know about that segment.
I wish we were that big. I wish Riderflex was big enough for people who are trying to hack us all the time.
So for a company like Caliola, there's a lot of risk out there for Caliola.
Gotcha.
Probably much more so than Riderflex.
Gotcha.
But you know what? Even when I worked at the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC, which is a nonprofit for heaven's sakes, I would get phishing emails disguised as my boss. Trying to the CEO, hey Reg, this is Dirk. Can you do something for me?
Wow. Wow.
So
make sure you're watching, you're monitoring your risk. Yes, change your passwords. Yeah. Anything else? Turn your camera off. And any other advice? do you advise against Alexa and my little Google machine over here that's listening to everything I'm saying? Do you recommend against those?
No, you know what? So I'm not an expert in that kind of security, but
Okay. All right.
you know, I've certainly seen enough of home videos getting hacked to know that if you're gonna have video cameras surveilling the interior of your house, that you better be darn sure that you've got a lot of cyber protection on that,
Okay.
or people are going to be watching you in your house.
Okay, very good.
So be very careful with that.
Very good. And then I want to ask about, I know these are 50,000 foot questions. I want to get these in here before we start talking about the company. I have so many questions about space. We could do, I mean, just everything, right? You know, I just have so many questions. One of my questions is, and I know you're not an expert on all this, but how the hell do we keep from things running into each other? All this shit we're putting in space, all these devices. How, I don't understand how there's not car crashes up there. Can you tell me what's your response to that?
So there have been, but they're very infrequent. And you know, the first explanation is just the big sky theory. It's just so immense out there, and inside of that immensity, everything else is so tiny.
I see.
But you know, when you get into certain orbits, things get crowded in certain orbit and certain traffic patterns. And the Space Force, formerly the Air Force, does a very good job of protecting our most critical assets. And so, for example, every time that the space shuttle, or every time that there is a launch with a U.S. astronaut, the Space Force is putting a virtual box around that and monitoring anytime that, you know, there's I think it might be up over 100,000 objects they're tracking in space right now. Don't quote me on that number.
Wow.
I just know it's really, and it's growing tremendous. I think it's like doubled in the last 3 years.
I mean, well, yeah, I mean, Musk is like shipping up Starlink satellites, one right after another. I mean, you know,
right.
Do they all have? Okay, if somebody's watching these 100,000 units, do they all have like little? I'm going to sound so ignorant. This is going to sound so Star Trek-ish, but do they all have like little thrusters, and you're like turning the thruster on to move it out of the way so it doesn't hit the other one? Is that what's happening?
So some of them certainly would. And I'd say, you know, the newer ones probably more likely have those things. The legacy ones, the older ones might be less likely to, especially if they're older ones. You know, have they expended all their fuel in terms of being able to maneuver?
I see.
So
Gotcha.
lots of factors, but the vast majority of them, certainly the newer ones, are maneuverable.
Okay. Here's another big 30,000 foot questions. I'm just dying to get these out here because I don't want to run out of time. Is there life on other planets, Reggie? Are we going to, and if there is, are me and you going to see it before we go? I mean, what's your opinion?
See if I could tell you, I'd have to kill you.
Super secret.
No.
Top defense. Super clearance. Top security clearance.
You know what? I wish I knew the answer to that question.
I mean, what's your opinion? If I forced you to choose, what would you say? Yes, I think there might be, or no, probably not.
Reggie Ash's personal opinion. I have no professional, Air Force knowledge that is feeding into this opinion. Just Reggie Ash's personal opinion is that the universe is so immense that it would be arrogant of us to think that we were the only life in the entire universe.
Okay. Yeah. I like that answer. I pretty much feel the same way. And I would just follow that up with, when people say the universe is so immense, or that we, you know, all that, I add to that it's so immense that we don't know how big it is. No, I mean, nobody knows where the end is. Like I mean, that's the way to really think about it. I really try to remind people, like, look, don't forget when you get really stressed out about your little problems for the day, like you woke up and you had a flat tire on your car, whatever, you got your little issues. Just remember, we're on this blue ball floating around in this black space, and nobody has any freaking idea how big it is, how far it goes, or what it all means.
That's right.
I think about that when I get stressed. If I get stressed at Riderflex, I'm having like a tough day. I'm just like, okay, let me just remind myself this is,
and even on this blue ball, the historical timeline and going out into the future, we're just such a tiny microcosm,
yes,
of that history, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I try to relax. That's my stress reliever. That's my, way of just kind of just taking a deep breath and reminding myself, billions of years, like, come on, man. Like, don't get too wound up over little stuff.
Right.
I just hope, from a curiosity perspective, I would love to still be alive when we actually do discover something. I'd love to be part of that.
Wouldn't that be fantastic?
That'd be so awesome. It'd be so awesome to be part of that. Very good. Okay. Well, I appreciate you answering some of those fun,
Certainly, yeah.
some of those fun questions. Are you worried? I guess this is one more. Oh, I just thought of one more. Do you worry about, when it comes to defense? Do you worry about China and North Korea, as a military guy? Like, do you worry about that? Do you worry about their ability up in space or weapons and things or communication or hacking? Like, do you worry about that? Or you're just like, our guys got it under control?
Yes, I worry about that. All of those things. Worry about the Chinese threat, the adversary threat, keeping it local to Caliola. And to me, that they might try to use me as an avenue to get to Caliola and the things that we're doing in support of the Defense Department. Worry about them on the bigger stage strategically for the United States. That China has a goal absolutely to be to challenge U.S. supremacy, Western democracy in the world. China wants to challenge that, just as Russia is challenging it right now in Ukraine. And so, yes, worry about all those things. You talked about China in space. I think it was around 2005, 2006 that China blew up a satellite in space. And if that wasn't a warning to the U.S., more recently, and these things previously would have been classified, but with the creation of Space Force, the recreation of Space Command, a lot of this stuff has become unclassified. And so the Space Force leaders are able to talk about now that our adversaries have satellites that are following ours.
Wow.
That they have one that's I think it was the Russians that have like a nesting doll where a satellite opened up and another one came out, and that opened up and another one came out, and it has the opportunity to shoot a projectile at another object in space.
Interesting.
And so our adversaries are absolute. They know how dependent not just our military, but our society in general is so dependent on space capabilities in terms of, think of GPS and all that GPS does for us, all the times that you need it for navigation. Well, GPS also does timing for a whole lot of things. And so that ATM machine that we go get our cash from is dependent on timing from the GPS system. And so there's just so much of industry and our commercial enterprises that relies on space that our adversaries know that they not just can damage our military, but they can damage our society as a whole by attacking us in space.
And the reason they want to does it go all the way back to the crocodile mind, caveman days? I want what you have, and you have more than me, so I'm going to get a club and hit you over the head and take your stuff. I mean, I feel like after all this advancement, right? All this technology, all these things we've been through as human beings, and here we are, we're still worried about the caveman over in the other cave coming over with a club and taking my stuff. Like, it's like, when you really boil it down, it's like, wow, actually we haven't gotten that far.
And that's why it's so important in as many areas as possible where there is agreement and there is an opportunity for cooperation to cooperate. And whether that's something like the International Space Station, or whatever it might be, those are great opportunities. But then you take China, for example, and it's in their interest to do currency manipulation, and it's in their interest to steal our intellectual property so that they can grow their industry a lot faster and improve their society a lot faster. Well, of course, that and so it's just it sometimes the legitimate interests of the societies are opposed to each other.
Interesting. Well, I think if aliens do ever land, by the way, then we'll all unite. All this petty bullshit that we have between each other as countries will probably start to go away, and we'll be like, all right, we need to team up here or else bad news. Oh man. Okay. Let's get into, if you don't mind, let's get into Caliola. By the way, for the listeners, it's Caliola, CALIOLA.com, Caliola.com. Give us.
You want me to how about I tell the listeners where Caliola comes from? Is that a good
Go
start?
Go for it. I was just about to say, where does it come from? The word, what does it mean? And then walk us into a nice company overview, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Cali comes from California. 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago, our owner, Jennifer Halford, and her husband, Tom Halford, living in Southern California. Jennifer was born and raised there. Tom moved there for graduate school from Southern California. And 4 years ago, they're deciding that they want to create a defense company, that they've been working in the defense industry, and they want to create their own small business. And so they did the research and figured out where's the best place to do that. Colorado Springs, best place to do that. And so they packed up their kids, moved them out to Colorado Springs, and so that's the Cali. The Ola, there's a lot of different meanings wrapped up in the word Ola. So it's the Spanish word for wave. And Jennifer and Tom both have some wave in their history. So you notice our symbol that's over my shoulder here. It's kind of a surf wave turned into a sine wave. And so Jennifer was an internationally competitive surfer.
Oh, okay.
Tom, who's our chief scientist, his PhD and many of his patents are in securing the waveform.
Interesting.
He's also still a nationally competitive swimmer. He was an intercollegiate swimmer.
Okay.
Last year, he was injured this year, couldn't defend his title. He was the 200-meter champion, breaststroke champion in his age group last year. And then to wrap it all up, when they were having the discussion about what they were going to name the new company, they were sitting at Ola Brewery. And so that brings that's the Caliola, the California.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool.
All of the ways that the waveform impacts our company.
Wow. Okay. I appreciate you sharing that story with me. Well, if they're both super athletic like that, their kids are going to be super athletes too.
I think, they've got some young kids who are just adorable. And,
that's great. Very cool.
They're doing a great job with it.
I was going to walk into how you met them, but first give us the overview of the company and what it does. And for anybody that hasn't heard of it, give me the elevator pitch. Go for it.
Yeah, Caliola, 3.5-year-old defense contractor company. We create innovative technology solutions, and we do a variety of things from secure mesh networking to precision navigation and timing in a GPS denied environment, precision location. We do some edge computing solutions like for special forces. We think there's an application for forest firefighters that get out where you don't have access to reach back to the network and helping them with file sharing. We've got a couple more projects that the Navy really loves that are essentially commanders support tools to help in the automated transitioning, the automated parsing out of access time for satellites, for modems, for electronics and things like that to make the most efficient use of electronics and communications. And so, as I said, a variety of innovative technological solutions. And then over the summer, we also acquired a 43-year-old defense services company that works in the military satellite communications arena, and that creates a lot of synergy for us.
I see. Oh, so it's a consultancy. It's a consulting services tech company. Is that
kind of, yeah. So the services piece is really more work. It's doing direct SATCOM work support for the Space Force and for the Air Force, more so than just consultancy.
Okay.
But we have a little piece of that as well. We do have a little piece of consultancy in working with other corporate clients to help them developing their products as well.
And your your revenue target the military, contracts with the military, or a little bit of both, private and the military, both? I don't know.
So in a little over 3 years, Caliola has raised nearly $20 million in non-dilutive revenue.
Wow.
The vast majority of that has been through DoD SBIRs, Small Business Innovation and Research grants. We've received.
That's why it's non-diluted. That's why it's non-diluted.
That's exactly right. Right. And so we are doing, part of those SBIR grants are to help small companies like Caliola to commercialize and branch out. And so we're getting a lot of help from that. And I'll tell you, we are really close on some exciting commercialization efforts.
That's great. Congratulations on raising that cash. That is a big deal right there. Okay, so good. All right, you guys are, so you're moving along, you're post revenue, you have clients, you've raised cash, you're healthy. You're not you're still startup, but you're not eating ramen noodles every night.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So we've got, we've still got a lot of the concerns of a startup corporation. We've had some really rapid growth. And so a year ago, my 1-year anniversary was November 1st. And in that time, we have doubled in size, and that doesn't even account for the acquisition that we did. And so a lot of rapid growth. Yeah. When you have that kind of rapid growth, you've got organizational structure challenges. You have to put in new organizational structures in place. You've got process challenges where you didn't necessarily need a process before because everybody would just talk about it. All of a sudden, you got to start putting processes into place. And so, we've got a lot of those things. And both
of those are your expertise, operations.
They are, yes, and that's how I've been able to help out Caliola significantly with that, and I enjoy doing that.
That's fantastic. Your title really is. It almost sounds like you're the COO, really, kind of. I mean,
maybe more chief of staff. You know what? I do a whole variety of things, and let me give you a little bit of the story of that. And so, for military guys like me, that if you include my cadet time, I spent almost 30 years where the Air Force would say, just go be a leader. We're going to have you go do a variety of things. We're going to tell you what you're going to do, and it might be something totally different than before. Just go be a leader. Learn how to be a strong leader. Yeah. And so when you get ready to leave the military, people start asking, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to go be a leader. And they kind of go, well, no, you can't just say that anymore. You gotta pick what you want to do. You gotta,
Yeah.
you know. And so everybody kept trying to get me to pick something. And then when I started the conversation with Jennifer, our CEO and founder, and she had a business development opening, and I said, hey, I'm very interested in that, and I sent her my resume. And then the next time that we met, basically she said, instead of doing this, I want you to be a leader. And so I was like, this is gold. This is the perfect fit for me. I mean, really what she said was, hey, Reggie, after looking at your resume, I don't want you for BD. She said, I've got too much on my plate as a CEO, and I want you to help me lead this company. And
Yeah, for
in
sure.
my mind, I went, okay, I can be a deputy commander. You know, that's the analogy. I can be deputy commander, you know. And so, you know, that's been for me is the driver for me is looking at the huge variety of ways that I can help Jennifer lead Caliola.
Yeah.
And so
Great fit. You know, if you know, for all the founders out there, all the startup founders, if you're a visionary, creative, strategic type founder that's invented something or whatever, and all of a sudden you get some money and you get growth, you need a strong operational commander type person to make the train go on time. and kudos to them to bring you on board to help with that, because it's just so important. I've seen, I don't know how many times I've either been involved or interviewed companies, and founders just don't know when to surround themselves with a commander. And it's so important. So yeah, great timing, perfect fit for you right now. That's for sure.
It is absolutely. You know, so I wrote Jen a note on my anniversary last week. You know, thank you again for bringing me on, let me be a part of this journey. And I said, you know, in some ways it seems like it's been so much more than a year, because we've doubled in size. We've had all this amazing growth.
That's
I
great.
said, but in some ways it feels like it was last week, because it still feels so fresh and exciting and new. And you know, that I'm having a blast. I'm absolutely
your energy, your energy and your passion is much higher than I would anticipate for a guy that already had his run in the military, 30 years. You know, you're a little younger than me, not much, I think, but you're my age. Like, a lot of guys in your situation are kind of like, all right, I'm going to cruise. I'm in cruise control now. I'm kind of, you know, I'm over here. I'm going to go fishing or whatever. You have this energy like, hey man, I'm ready to, let's conquer the next mountain. I love that.
You're absolutely right. And that's part of that DNA that comes from my dad, you know. So I've got brothers who are entrepreneurs, and that's just the family, is we want to go conquer the world.
Your wife, are you married with kids? I'm assuming. I didn't ask you.
I am married. So next month it'll be 32 years married.
Wow.
And we have 3 kids, 19, 21, and 23.
That's great. Congratulations. 30 something years in marriage. Damn, you need a tax break. You've been married that long. You should be in some sort of special tax break bracket.
I think so, right? Yeah, we need to write our congressman about that.
Does your wife, is she like, Reggie, will you please just calm down? I want to like retire. Because you probably, I don't know your situation, but I'm guessing you could probably retire if you wanted to. Is your wife like, Reggie, can we just chill? Like, can we just buy like a cabin? You know, like, come on, Reggie, calm down.
We have had those conversations. She knows that it is not in my blood.
Can't do it.
Sit back and relax. No,
you can't do it. Plus, you look like you're in shape. I'm guessing you're doing cardio every day of some kind.
I do. I try to do some P90X, and so I did some push-ups and some ab ripper X this morning in the basement.
All right, your son, your kids. You got 3 of them. What'd you say? Boys, girls? What'd you say? Did you say?
Girl in the middle.
Okay, girl in the middle. Are your sons? They say can you do more push-ups than your 19-year-old or no?
Oh yeah. And he doesn't even try. He doesn't even like. And I try to tell him how I'm like, come on, son, that's pretty pathetic. You need to, you know. You are your leadership. I mean, you're a type A driven leader, obviously, but you're polished enough with your people skills. Like we talked about when we first started, you know,
your dad, it was probably the same age as my dad. And my dad was the same way, very much a John Wayne, I'm in charge of everybody type, character. But there wasn't a lot of, it wasn't balanced with any warm and fuzzy hugs and kisses and all that. It was just like, it was pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Cold a little bit. I mean, he didn't mean to be that way. I think that's just the generation they came from, right? They were just.
I'd agree with that. Yeah. And certainly the way he was raised,
Yes. Yeah, that too.
Yeah, a generational thing. And then plus, he was an entrepreneur his whole life. And so, whereas I had an Air Force bureaucracy train me how to be a more polished leader. And I had, as you mentioned earlier, lots of great examples to learn from and to emulate. He didn't necessarily have that. He just had to go out and learn it on his own, which leads to the more maverick sort of an attitude, right?
Yeah. Let's wrap this up with two things. What career, I know we could do a whole episode on this question, but what career advice would you give to somebody finishing up college? They're getting ready to either decide to go into the military or start their career. What would you tell them right now? Almost like a short answer to what would you do if you were doing a college, what do they call the speech? I'm losing my train of where they do the speech for the guest speaker. During grad. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
So Steve, the first thing that I'd say is, hey, if you're considering the military, that is a great life. And while there are certainly family stressors, every career nowadays has family stressors. And for me and my family, it was a great family life. But you know what? The biggest lesson that I think I have that is applicable to everybody, no matter what type of a career that they're considering, is that life and career are never going to work out the way you're planning. There is not a single step in my career that worked out the way I planned it. And especially not the last 6 years since I retired from the Air Force. None of that has worked out like I planned it. But wherever you are, just go kick it in the hind end and give it everything you got, and you're going to grow and bloom from there in great ways that you never expected.
Good stuff, Reggie. And then as far as the company, Caliola, what would you say to anybody listening that might want to contact you? Should they reach out to you on LinkedIn? Should they just go to the contact us on the the website, caliola.com? What's the best way to get in touch?
If they can do either one of those things, I am on LinkedIn, Reggie Ash on LinkedIn, and go to Caliola.com is our website. Come check us out. Check out our technology. We have a leadership page on there and a contact us. And definitely check out both of those things. Caliola has a LinkedIn page as well that I try to be pretty active with. And so.
Okay, very good. Very good. If they do reach out, do they get you? Do they get to talk to you? Who do they go to if somebody wants to connect?
On the Caliola page, there's two of us, me and I have a counterpart down Meredith Payne down in Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
And she's a fantastic lady with a lot more of the business experience than what I have. But the two of us together run our social media.
Excellent. Reggie, thank you so much for sharing your story on the Riderflex podcast, and congratulations on everything you've accomplished. Really impressive.
Thanks so much, Steve. This is a great podcast you've got, and honored to be a part of it. Thank you.